Hi, everyone. It's Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof, and I am here with another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted. I have my beloved client on this as a guest on this episode, and his name is Cuong Hung. And I know you go by CQ, and maybe during the interview I'll call you CQ, but we're just going to talk about Kong's book and we're going to talk about why he wrote it. And so, what I want to start with today, because his bio is so extensive, you see how smart this guy is when I read the bio. So, that's what I'm going to start with. I know Kong is very humble, very, very humble. Okay, Kong, and I don't even know the Kai, Kwai,
It's we.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that because I
No
don't
worries.
that.
No worries.
Hung is a co-founder of two nonprofit organizations, the Enlightened Initiative and Rende Progress Capital. His passion is working with underinvested and vulnerable populations for both youth and entrepreneurs. He authored his first book, God's Crucible: We Who Dream of a Better Life, Stories of Hope by Refugee and Immigrant Youth in 2019. Kong graduated with a law degree from the University of California College of Law at San Francisco as a Thurgood Marshall Fellow. Further, he graduated with a master's degree in public policy from the University of Chicago as a Woodrow Wilson Fellow. Additionally, he graduated from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, with a major in sociology with honors. Kong was a 2022-23 Council on Foreign Relations International Affairs Fellow in Canada. Also, he was a scholar in May 2023 of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. Oh my gosh, welcome, Kong. I'm so honored to have you as a guest.
Thank you, Michelle. Me too. So excited to be here and catch up with you, talk about the book and other things. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. So thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. So my first question is,
Yeah.
tell me, after reading that bio, I mean, that tells everybody how educated you are, but tell viewers a little bit about your life experience and how your family originally came to settle in the United States.
Sure. So my family and I, we came to United States in 1979, part of the second wave of the boat people from Vietnam. And we stayed in two refugee camps in Malaysia. And so I lived poverty, felt poverty, experienced poverty. So for many people, probably thousands of people, that's the impetus to do something. Many of the refugees who able to survive in America or different Western societies in Canada and Europe want to make a lot of money because they felt what it's like to live in poverty. So and so they want to make a lot of money, of course, like billions of people on Earth, and just kind of forget from their experience as refugees. And I said to myself that, excuse me, when I was 6 years old in Malaysian refugee camp, I said, if I were to get out of this environment, I would not forget people living in poverty. And and so, I just if I were to be there in the refugee camp, I just don't want anybody to forget me and my family. So luckily, my uncle in the United States sponsored my parents, so older siblings, and I to come to the United States. And being in poverty is hard, right? It's hard, it's difficult. There's American poverty, there's a Western, I mean, poverty is poverty, right? But yet in the refugee camp, there's no future. There's no 401k, there's no plan for retirement. It's just very, very difficult. It's like day by day, if you're lucky to survive. So we got food from United Nations, UNICEF, um, to eat, to drink clean water. And so that's what motivates me to help people who are disadvantaged, marginalized, because I was one of those people. Maybe I'm still am, who knows? But the point is that, it's difficult to living in a social environment where there are not a lot of opportunities because of class, race, gender. In my case, political status as refugees, no country will take responsibility of refugees because I think from my definition, refugees, there's no state that would claim the people. Like if I were to be, I mean, I'm an American citizen. If I go somewhere else, hopefully the US Embassy, hey, we know there's American, let's get them back to the United States as refugees, stateless, and they were to die, nobody would know. So, so I know what it's like to live in poverty, difficulties. So I
Is
want
there
to
a
use my
lot of
life.
hopelessness in the refugee camps and in the poverty there? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm imagining there's a lot of hopelessness, like things will never change. This is
yeah,
always how it's going to be.
correct. Because who would, excuse me, who want to help the refugees? What can anybody get from it? Because they don't have anything to give back. So in any relationship, it's quid pro quo. Like I gave you something, you get something, right? It's kind of like a back and forth. As refugees, what I don't have any money to give you. I don't have any assets to give you. I don't have any property to give you. So why would anybody want to? I mean, rationally, would want to help refugees unless governments, care about people and human lives. So definitely hopelessness was very prevalent. And unfortunately, my uncle from the United States sponsored us. So we came. When I came to the United States, I was a refugee. I was on welfare and food stamps and free lunch. And I left, I was on welfare. So,
And no education. No, all of the things that I read. Had you done any of that yet?
no, this is what I was 7 years old when I came to the United States.
Okay, seven. No, you hadn't done any of it yet.
No, it's just because, luckily I like school. And I think I'm a very curious person. I like to learn. And so the United States gave me an opportunity to learn. And what's the alternative? Do nothing, complain a lot. Oh man, how come I don't get this? Look at other people. How come they have more than I do? How come they have a bigger house, bigger car, bigger whatever? And I'm like, hmm. I mean, I could have died in Malaysia. So I realized that even on the before Malaysia, we were on the fishing boat leaving Vietnam to Malaysia, on the refugee on the leaving because of the communist government in Vietnam. That we could have died in a fishing boat. We were 3 or 4 days in the open sea. I mean, there were pirates there. Luckily, we able to survive. With the pirates, we encountered friendly pirates. Could be oxymoron, but
Wow.
we encountered pirates that are not hostile. Excuse me. And here's stories where pirates in the Indochina Sea were pretty bad. Would take out money, gold,
Yeah.
physical violence, sexual assaults, etc. Uh, and so I gone through a lot. The expression is, I fell through the cracks. I fell through the cracks. Statistically, given my social demographics, I would not be where I am. But because of mentors, people who believe in me, give me a chance, feel sorry for me. I don't know what you want to call it. And then,
But saw something in you, though.
yeah, I
They
think
didn't
so. Which
help
I didn't.
everybody. They,
Yeah, yeah, right. I think because they can saw something in me which I did not see before. And maybe because we're just curious.
okay.
So I
So,
think, yeah,
so did your family land in, because I remember in living in Southern California, that's where what we called the boat people came
yeah,
into the
yeah.
Southern California. So is that where you came
Good
in?
question. No, actually, good question. This is what Camp Pendleton.
Oh, way southern. Okay.
Yeah, this is Southern California, Orange County. There are a lot of Vietnamese there.
Okay.
But we came, we first came to San Francisco, then we flew down to LA. And we stayed at my father's friend in his house for a bit. and then we were under the federal government. Excuse me, give us like welfare and housing, free housing or assisted housing to like help us to excuse me, to put, to have our own feet, kind of like stand up our own selves. And then I have like, believe it or not, I have 9 older siblings. And some of those older siblings work and help me
9,
take
like,
nine, like nueve in Spanish, like like
wow.
in Spanish. So but none of them were there though. Some of them were in Canada, different parts of the country, but the majority, 5 or 6, were there. They had to, obviously we got to work in order to feed so many mouths, right? So welfare wasn't enough, and then they had to work odd jobs. I remember my older brothers working in Chinese restaurants to get extra cash to pay for like bills, and I was like still a kid. I mean, like I just went to school and go from there. But it was but we landed first in San Francisco, down to LA,
Okay.
and just slowly got, back then the federal government benefits were very helpful for people, for refugees and
Mhm.
people who are marginalized. And look, now I'm a happy tax-paying citizen. I love paying my taxes. You should record that actually. Uh,
Yes.
and I like to pay taxes because the American government invested in me. So now
Yes.
I'm trying to pay back the taxes. So,
That's
you
a
know,
that's a great view. Great view. Yeah.
yeah. So
So entrepreneurialism, you just described some of your life experience, but were you always an entrepreneurial minded, or when did that kind of start when you got older? Did the entrepreneurial bug bite you?
good question. Excuse me. That's a very good question. I think I've been, as I said, I've been very curious as a child. Keep on asking questions on why this. So I've been very curious. I've noticed that in me since I was a kid. Just curious, asking the question like why. And I like to take risks. And maybe this is the answer, that as refugees, taking so like my parents took the risk to leave Vietnam. That by itself is risky. We
Yes.
could have died. We could have died in open sea. I mean, we're like, oh, double transplanted, right? First to
Yeah.
Malaysia, then to the
Daring
US.
and courageous.
Yeah, for them. So for me, seeing my parents, not as business owners, but taking more risks, taking risks to have better social economic opportunities, social economic mobility. So, so in high school, I created a service club as a president, a founder. So that's kind of like entrepreneurial, right? Founded a high school club, service club, off the
Okay.
gone club. Then college, major in sociology. That's not business. But I thought like, I just want to understand how people interact, how, as a new American, how people react, how do they work together. And then was interested in entrepreneurship because I knew I was very, you could call it courageous, but very risk-taking. Sometimes my wife say like, "Yeah, you're too risk-taking. You're way too risk-taking." But
Just coming to the United States in a boat in the ocean is,
yeah,
like you said, is risk-taking. And I'm gathering, just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but did anybody in your family speak English when
excuse me.
you all first landed, or did you have a basic understanding of English, or did you come here only speaking Vietnamese?
Well, English is a second language for me, so I speak Vietnamese. I learned ABCs in the refugee camp. There were a few older siblings who would know like basic English. We're not talking about like, writing a thesis. No, we
Okay.
just talk about just where the bathroom, where I need to go, where can I eat,
Yeah.
survival English maybe.
Yes.
So so um so I grew up learning English as a second language.
Okay.
And even in college, I had to work on my writing, even graduate school and law school, even because English is still my second language, you know. I'm very comfortable with it because I've been speaking
Yeah.
English for many years. What, how many years? Like more than 40 years speaking English, writing English. Um, so I'm comfortable, you know. I don't have an accent, I guess, maybe like others, maybe coming from, maybe I still do, who knows? But the point is that, um, you know, it's in my brain. It's not. It's not like a. It's kind of second nature, right? To think about English words and how I count 1, 2, 3 versus like in Vietnamese 1, 2, 3. Like more kind of, so a different kind of, you know, speaking. So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, it's been um, being coming from as a refugee.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not afraid of taking risks. Of course, the consequences of things that work out, it's going to be painful economically, socially, maybe. But
They're learning
hey,
experiences. They're
yeah,
opportunities
exactly.
for growth.
Exactly. You know, in the Chinese character, Chinese character, opportunity or prices, you know. So I see more as an opportunity when I take risks. And you look at my career, it's like he's doing this, he's doing that. And hmm, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? You know, if
Yeah.
I don't do this, what could I do that's different than how I
Yes.
think? Yeah, you know, what's the alternative career or life? And I realized that there's only one life, and you know, people think about legacy, think about what could they give back. I think, you know, if I don't live the life I want to, I think, you know, through my faith, what's important, then what kind of life? What's the second best life? You know, I could
Mhm.
live. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to let everybody know uh, when I say the title of Kong's book, I helped him with a previous book, Leading with a Servant's Heart, which he co-wrote with a co-author. But this one, I want to kind of turn the corner and talk about this book because I know you spent so much time on this book, and the title is Underinvested Entrepreneurs and Wealth Inequality: Experiences of Canadian and American Minority and Immigrant Entrepreneurs. That's a mouthful, and the book is so meaty and full of just well thought out research and everything. But what I want to ask, and you kind of alluded to this before, is you could have just written it about US based entrepreneurs. Why did you include Canada in your research as well?
very good question. Um, so I got support from the Council on Foreign Relations to do the research in Canada. I could just focus on only in Canada, but given that my work is to support the, I call it underinvested, people call it underserved, underrepresented, under-resourced um, entrepreneurs, that I think it'd be kind of cool to look at comparisons. And they're both, of course, two different nations. One is 10 times bigger than the other. Canada is only 10% of the US in terms of GDP, populations. And to make the comparison is very interesting for me. And, you know, I think one would think before going to Canada is that maybe Canada would be happy more open or maybe more open to helping the underinvested entrepreneurs, but not really because they have less resources because 10% GDP. So I think in human psychology, when there's less, people tend to be a little more restricted. They're not as open to freely. You know, when in the US, you know, Silicon Valley, Austin, Boston, those kind of like, you know, entrepreneurship communities, they have a lot more resources to play and they can, excuse me, like a better phrase, they can play, they can willing to invest and be okay with failing. Whereas when you go to a different country, it doesn't have to be Canada, it could be different country when the different countries. So, but if a country doesn't have a lot of resources to worry about failing, then there's less risk taking because they want to have more home runs than single bases
Yes.
or like, you know, hitting it out. So the US, because it's $24 trillion economy, they can afford to have failures. By failures, you have a lot more risks. More risk means probably more, generally more innovation. Whereas other countries that can less resources tend to want to hit home runs or triples. And if you don't hit those, you kind of lose some. So they're more conservative in that regard. Not because they don't want to, but because they don't have enough. I mean, like you cannot squeeze something where there's nothing to squeeze. Right. So does it make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And you did, in the midst of your research for your book, you talk, I mean, I want you to talk about the survey you conducted in preparation for this book, but I want to read an excerpt from that survey. So on page 286, you say, out of 65 survey respondents, at least 62% of underinvested entrepreneurs expressed that racism, unconscious bias, and discrimination in the marketplace have made it harder for them to succeed in business and economic growth due to the entrepreneur's race or immigrant status in the United States. Racism, unconscious bias, and discrimination are costly and burdensome to the American economy, and they obstruct the overall economic growth of the United States because the underinvested entrepreneur's full potential has not been recognized in American society. So speak to that. In your opinion, how does that make underinvested entrepreneurs feel in the marketplace based on that, just that quote alone?
Yeah. That definition, underinvested means they're not getting opportunity. Like, for example, access to venture capital, be part of a network to get opportunities like federal contracts, even government contracts to compete on the same level. When there's discrimination bias for excuse me, decades. So when there's unequal over time, it goes like this. So after a while, it's hard to close a gap when there's unequal. It doesn't take years or even 5 years because the inequality affects families. You know why this book matters? It's because of our people, children, families. Unless, African Americans bleed green, Asian American bleed blue, Latinos bleed yellow, Caucasian bleed only white. We all bleed the same red colored blood. But because of selfishness, greed, whatever it is, what we need to do, the inequality doesn't really help society. The people on top love it. You know why they love it? Because they get all the stuff they want, the property and the legacy continues for their children, their grandchildren. So why want to change it? Because I'm on top. The bottom one's like trying to scrape and work it up and go through social mobility, economic mobility just to make it. And I would include the word, I put the term, it's costly because it affects us as a whole society. The wealthy people think that I can live in a gated community, have my bunkers, go my yacht. There's COVID, I go my yacht. See y'all later. When it's all back to normal, I come back to the land. But there's no social cohesion, the civic implicit agreements as Americans, I think. Not every country believe that. Other countries think like, hey, I got mine, you got yours, and boom, and you have huge inequality. They call it, I got my stuff, I'm protecting my stuff, you got your stuff, and then I just, me, which is fine. I mean, like, they're probably 2/3 of the planet live like that. I mean, more. But in America, I was born in a different country. I see this as a great experiment. Because look at me, I'm a refugee coming here. If I had to be out of Vietnam, there's no way I would have these kind of opportunities. No way. But again, as I fell through the cracks, how can we make America great? How can we have more Einsteins? How can we have more Dr. King? How can we have more geniuses to help us? How can we go live on the moon? I used to work for NASA for 10 years, so I know the possibilities. I've seen the possibilities. I've seen people as in NASA headquarters, people floating on the International Space Station. And like, how is that possible when people work together that we can advance humanity? Our first instinct is, what's mine? What are you doing for me? What am I getting?
Yeah.
What are you doing for me? But I mean, what's it? I mean, I say this respectfully. What's the difference between an animal and for human beings that would think like, what are you doing for me? I need to get mine because I need to satisfy my own needs, hunger, pleasure, whatever it is. Or, and this is where I think America is different. I think, you call it American exceptionalism or greatness, whatever it is that if we believe not only ourselves, other people call our neighbors, and Jimmy Carter, I know he died recently, but I think he lived a life of service. I think if going back to entrepreneurialism, if we give opportunities for underinvested, underserved, under-resourced entrepreneurs to give opportunities, they will help not only families, communities, and the nation.
Mm.
We have to think about not on the pie as like a zero-sum situation. He got his pie or she got her pie and we have left. No, why did Google create so many jobs? Facebook, Amazon, because when there's innovation, you create more innovative products and services and to create more jobs. The pie gets bigger, the pie doesn't get smaller. If we think that's why entrepreneurship, I think, is fun for me, if I could say that, is that it allows opportunities to create more wealth, more opportunities. However, because of racism, discrimination, and lack of networks, and people don't look the same as other people that you're comfortable with. They look like John Smith or Billy Joe, oh man, how can we trust them? Are they gonna take the money? Are they gonna? And when there's fear in investing other entrepreneurs, then I think we just go in the same trap over and over and over again. And I put the word wealth in quality because it is expensive. It is very, very expensive to exclude and deny opportunities for underinvested returns because I mean other countries do, but why America? Why do we have to do it ourselves? Because they don't look like us. They don't dress like us.
Yeah.
They may move in a way that's not like us. They don't eat like us. Oh man, they're not like us. So why are we going to give us resources? Unless they live in different, you know, island out there or something, but they all live in the same 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. We do that because of our fear of not thinking beyond our own selves.
Yeah.
So this book is really the cost. It's to say the message, right? It is expensive. It's very expensive to exclude and deny opportunities for underinvested entrepreneurs because they may create jobs opportunity. They could be the next Einstein, the next great company. Nobody don't know. But yet, because of their race or background or maybe their status, how we cannot trust them. How can we get the money on that stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying like every immigrant company or minority company is going to be like super successful. I'm not saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But like use the same kind of standards they use for mainstream Caucasian companies.
Mm-hmm.
And how,
Yeah.
because it's expensive to exclude, it's expensive to
Yeah. Yeah.
deny.
I love that point. Yeah. Yeah.
It is because they think, and you know what? I'm not backing up my own thinking. The Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, I'm sorry, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco in
Mm-hmm.
April 2021 did a study. It cost the US economy $2.6 trillion to exclude. $2.6 trillion. That's like $7.1 billion a day. So basically, the American economy a day, we're just going to throw $7.1 billion away because, we don't want to invest in entrepreneurs that look like us. They don't trust them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I like that you say it is costly
It
and
is.
not just money wise, it's costly on many levels. And I want to highlight what chapter 12 and the title of your chapter 12 is policy recommendations for American underinvested entrepreneurs. So you have many, many policy recommendations, and I want people to go out and buy the book to read all what you have included there because there is so much meat there. But can you briefly tell viewers three or four of the recommendations and why they're important to the ultimate strength of the entrepreneurial community as a whole?
Yeah, thank you. So besides my risk-taking nature as a former refugee, fortunately I met some really incredible entrepreneurs in 1990. One is Wally Amos, the famous Amos Cookies. He used to sell a lot of cookies, and I had to taste his real cookies in Hawaii. That was awesome. That's by itself is amazing. And the other was Ewing Marion Kaufman. He was a former owner of the Kansas City Royals. And because of his wealth, he believed in education, entrepreneurship. So Mr. Wayne Kaufman is one of my role models. I mean, Wally and Mr. Wayne Kaufman are like great entrepreneurial models. And Ewan Kaufman created a foundation called the Kaufman Foundation, and they're big into entrepreneurship. And they have this called America's New Business Plan. And because I met Mr. Ewan Kaufman in 1990, I kind of like, hey, and see if I can follow him. And I agree with what they said in the America's New Business Plan. 1, access to opportunity. 2, access to funding. 3, access to knowledge. And 4, access to support. It's really the 360 ways of supporting underserved, underinvested, under-resourced entrepreneurs. Because of bias or discrimination against underserved, underinvested entrepreneurs. These kind of policies help them to support them, to give them chances, like, for example, paying for childcare. So actually women and men can work and have tax credits to invest in them, even though, access to financial capital is if not the top 2 issues for immigrant minority entrepreneurs. I don't have an uncle go, hey, Uncle Bob, can you give me 50,000 because I have this great idea? He's like,
I don't
my
either.
uncle, yeah, even my uncle's gonna ask me for money, because I'm educated, so like, I don't have those kind of networks. And then if you look at the survey and the response in the survey said, like, can you think of any friends or family members can give you $10,000, $15,000? They don't have it. Yeah. Why? Because our communities are like low wealth. Like if you ask Joe, Paul, and Billy, and they don't have it. So like, yeah, who are you gonna ask? So those are the pillars or policies to really support the entrepreneurs. So they have a shot. Why? Why is it important? Why is it important?
Yeah.
1, who knows, they can become the next Walmart, the next Amazon. We don't know that. Sorry.
That's right.
2, to help them build wealth. In the book, I talked about why people want to build. Why do you think people, want to go into entrepreneurship? Why? 1, because maybe they don't like their own boss. They don't like their current boss. They say, I want to be my own boss, Yeah, I don't want to work with people who are like, it's a bit nutty.
Yes.
So
There's a lot of advantages to that.
Yeah, I want to be my own boss. Time, they can be with their family, right? They think with the company, the dream, aspiration to make more money than they currently have, right? And legacy, they can pass down to their kids, grandkids of the company. So that's why people go into entrepreneurship, because they look at their situation and go, man, is this how it is right now? Working ABC company is it going to make me and my family the best, or did I go somewhere else? And there are just 2 different types of. In the book, I mentioned 2 different types of entrepreneurs. The one is called necessity entrepreneurs, and the other is more like how I call it choice entrepreneurs. More education, they have more resources, more network, etc. The likelihood of success is greater. And the necessity entrepreneurs are people who are like one of my sisters. She didn't have that much education. She didn't really get a job. Hey, I know Chinese, I know Vietnamese, so let me start a Chinatown, a store in Chinatown. How many people would go to Chinatown for what's clothes? Get clothes. It's like, hey, that's how I'm gonna make my money. Let's open a store, a clothing store in Chinatown because I speak Chinese and Vietnamese. I go Hong Kong, get some clothes, go back, get some clothes and so on. That's necessity entrepreneurship, because there's no other choices. And they have to feed themselves and their families. So
Okay.
for many immigrant entrepreneurs, they have to go into entrepreneurship because of necessity, not because they want to. And maybe they want to too. They have the resources. Yeah. I mean, if we have a choice, we like to be our own boss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
That's a very clear answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, did you experience or I should say, what was your greatest challenge in writing this book? Because I know you put a massive amount of research in it. You had to coordinate all of the footnotes, the endnotes, and all that.
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't part of the challenge, but what was your greatest challenge in completing it?
Well, there are many challenges, but the one that's really stand out is the getting more entrepreneurs to fill out the surveys, because I want to have their voices in there. Fortunately, I got some good voices,
Yes.
and you can see that, as you can see in the surveys, and excuse me, you see in the surveys what they express. It's difficult because they don't have the same networks.
Mhm.
Excuse me, they don't have the same networks. Networks, people who have a lot of money friends to call them, you know. And one of the things that I want to share with you from the book that I think is important for our discussion is, especially for underinvested entrepreneurs, they want to start a company because they think like, oh man, I need to get out of my current work situation, or I don't have a job, I need to do something. Right? The likelihood, I'm talking about the probability of success in terms of weathering the storm, inflation, war, whatever the economic recession, depression, whatever it is to have, this is what I would tell folks. If one, I know it's hard for a necessity entrepreneur to get, I don't have anything, so gotta do it to survive, or else if I don't do it, how can I have food to eat? Money to buy food to eat. But for folks who can plan, who can think about how can they weather the storm, because in any business cycle in the economy, it goes up like that,
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, there's ebbs and flows. So I would say this, listening to your podcast, is that if you want to start a company, any company, technology, whatever company, is to have enough reserves, because you, meaning you, the entrepreneurial, 99.9%, there's no guarantee, like except for death and taxes, right? But 99% you will encounter in market situation where you have to burn your reserves. The
Yes.
more reserves an entrepreneur has in the beginning, it will help him or her weather the storm. And then after like the 5th year or 7th year, that's where the profit, that's where the wealth comes in. If the entrepreneur, the minority, the underserved don't have enough, they're gonna foreclosure, bankruptcy, whatever it is, and they don't have a chance to be on the other side to get the wealth. So that's why it's so hard when they have little to begin with, and then they go to the business, all that stuff, and don't have support. And boom. But if they were to survive through that, and that's where the wealth building comes in,
Yes.
and that's where it's going to come up. Majority just fell through. They may call it the valley of death, whatever you want to do, because they don't have enough to begin with.
Yes.
Reserves. This is one of major findings I've found in this research. It's amazing. I would not have found this if I didn't do the research.
Yes.
And the JP Morgan Chase supports this. When I read it, I said, oh my goodness, it makes sense. It totally makes sense to me, because if the underserved entrepreneurs don't have enough to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
and they go through this entrepreneurship cycle, and it's so expensive.
Yes.
What else? I mean, they can call, hey, Uncle Billy, can I get some, or Auntie Jane, we know they don't have it much.
Yeah.
So they have to, but then if they were to be able to persevere 2 or 3 years later, that's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the profits come in. That's where the wealth building comes in.
Yes.
All the things I talk about in year 1, year 7, year 8. That's why I say, yeah. I talk about generally. That's it. Yes, all the time, all the sacrifices, all the investments, all that. They will see 9th, 10th year because by then they've gone through all the rigmarole, all the
Yes.
test runs, all the battles, and they can see that. And that's where the dream of owning company, that's where the wealth thing comes in. If they would, so-called pass the valley of death, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your greatest joy in seeing your book, seeing the idea for this book come alive? What was your greatest joy along the way?
Yeah, that research, that finding, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And my joy is that people read the book
Yes.
and and make preparations to start a bit. And when you start a business, be prepared because you want to be prepared to succeed.
Yes. Yeah.
That for me is joyful. And and I want them to you should go after your dreams. Definitely. In America, I mean, but now forget it. I mean,
Yes.
I wouldn't have a chance to dream. In America, fortunately, you can. It's not easy.
Yes.
There's different resources out there. And I would say my joy is to have this book out there for people to read and to learn and to go after the dreams
Yes.
and to make an impact, hopefully a positive impact in
Yes.
your family, in your community, state, in your nation, and the world.
Yes.
And that's what, for me, this book allows me a platform, right? A platform
Yeah,
to
it is.
to, to talk about these issues. And yeah, if I can create positive energy out there, positive opportunities out there for folks, and create more wealth, because look, I believe in the sum of good. If I can do good, people do other good, they'll benefit, the community benefits, the states benefit,
Yes.
the states benefit, the nation benefit, the
Yes.
nation benefit, the world benefits. I believe in the sum of good. I mean, like that I just made it up. I don't know, I should copyright it. But the point
Yeah.
is that
It's
yeah,
well, that's your legacy as well. That's your legacy is starting where you are doing, writing this book, getting it into the hands of people who
mhm,
want to dream, who want to be an entrepreneur and never thought it was possible. You are
yes,
giving them the information, you're equipping them to do that. And I think
yes.
that's a legacy that you will have by
Thank you.
doing this book. So,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, I'm
Thank
thrilled.
you. Yeah.
So I have one last question for you.
Yeah. Yes.
And we probably didn't cover everything, but you have to read the book to to
Okay.
get all the information.
Well, actually, how about this? You can go to a library, go to a
Yes,
local library, ask for this book. You don't have to pay for it. Get the library to pay for you. Read it. For what's important to me is that you read the information.
yes,
Why like you think like, wow, I didn't think about that. It's going to help you prepare when you start a business or enterprise or endeavor, so you can prepare and be successful.
yes,
That's what I would like. If you can do that, then I think it's because once a business is successful, be a strong company,
hmm,
hire employees, build wealth,
yes.
create quality jobs, and assist community members to get out and stay out of poverty. That's why it matters.
That's a nice bow on this discussion, but I want to add a special bow
Okay.
and and along the way, because you were only 7 when you arrived here in the United States. You are a fellow believer in Jesus Christ, and we have had many. Cuong is the first one to say, let's pray
Yes.
before and or after any time we've had meetings, with producing his book. And
Yes.
I just want to ask you, when did that transformation take place? When did you become a follower of Jesus Christ?
Oh. I think it happened 2009, I think. And I was working for NASA, the space agency. I
Okay.
had like one of my supervisors is a Christian, and he took me hours talking to me during lunch hour. He's like, I gotta talk with you. I said, why? I want to talk with you. He's my boss, so I can't say no to him, right? So I gotta sit down with him and talk with him, like, what with this? What with this? And I said, okay, thank you, John, for sharing. But I think what happened, I'm meeting different people throughout, and then we have that God does it to
Mm.
say they care about this. And so I was very skeptical. Maybe like Paul, who knows? Um, but it just, some people out there, not to say all Christians are perfect, they're not, because they're still human beings. We have a lot of flaws as Christians. Um, I think what happened was when I saw people who were living their faith out, in integrity,
Mm.
I started to notice because their walk and their talk are aligned. Then I say, wait, what kind of Kool-Aid are drinking? I want to try that Kool-Aid out.
Yeah, I might want
Yeah,
a little sip of that.
yeah, correct. Because what's the alternative? I go back. I used to be culture Buddhist. Go back, do my thing, like everybody else in the world, sin, lie, just to make it, whatever it is. I mean, what was it gonna cost me? Nothing, right? If I try it, it doesn't work out. And you know what? By being a Christian, well, it's not been easy, but I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it because it allows me to become living a life that has an impact, a life with miracles.
Yes.
That's what being a Christian is. It's a life with miracles. When things don't come out, it is. Even this book, I think, is a miracle, right? So, I think
Yes.
it's. I think. I think it's going to be a very impactful book as a way to start conversations and people to know about. It called entrepreneurship is not business only; it's about people.
Mhm.
That's why it matters.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
the children and the grandchildren, the legacy of helping creating opportunities. It is expensive to exclude. It is expensive to have wealth inequality. It is very costly to the American economy to have wealth inequality. It is it is unhealthy for wealth inequality to have in democracy. We need to have more people participating in the democratic process. So that's why when we have less wealth inequality, more wealth, opportunities, I think the people will get more active, be participate, and be engaged,
Mm.
specifically engaged, politically engaged, because they feel like they have some stakeholder interests.
Yes.
If they feel like, I don't know, a voice, billionaires, for example, they pay for the campaigns. I don't have $250 million to give to a campaign. I mean, trying to have enough money to eat next week.
Yes.
When they don't have people to be engaged, it's democracy, American democracy suffers
Mm-hmm.
tremendously. So some economics of political wealth inequality is hurtful and expensive to everybody.
Yes, yes, it absolutely is. And wrap up by telling people where they can find your book. And I will also put the link in the show notes, and I'll put all of Kong's social media links and all that in the show notes. But where can people find your book?
Son, they go out the book.
Amazon.
Yeah. Or I would suggest this for folks who don't want to buy the book, you don't have to buy the book. You go to your local library or universities to tell them to order the book so you can read it. For me, what's very important to get the knowledge
Good.
than just for me,
Yes.
I'm not big into like selling bunches of books. I
Mhm.
mean, what's important is people will learn it, read it, and
Yes.
think about it so they can prepare.
Okay.
That's more important for me.
Good. That's awesome. And that's more of a mission than, I tell all my authors, you're not going to become a millionaire by through book sales, like ever.
Yeah. And
So but you have a bigger mission. You want people to get that information to be empowered and to take action.
yeah. And then use the information to make choices for your lives because your lives
Yeah.
have an impact in your family, in your community, in your state, in your nation around the world. So that's why it's important. How can you prepare yourself to leave a mark in this life to have a positive impact?
Oh, that is such a great way to end this episode. That's awesome. I thank you, Cuong, for being on here today, for having the discussion, for talking about your book and talking about your faith and talking about your journey and everything. So I really appreciate you being here.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. So thank you, Michelle.
Okay. Well, everybody, thank you for watching this episode. And until next time, thank you for watching another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.